In Cyrenaica, the Battle of the Mediterranean, for that's what this desert fighting really is, has been going well. The 8th Army, which has been winning battles all along the route from Egypt to Tripolitania, has definitely got Rommel on the run. And the British plan of destroying German and Italian war material in Africa is being thoroughly carried out. Lots of captured material will be sent back. The enemy was badly mauled right from the start of our offensive, and as that offensive gathered momentum, he lost more and more weapons. It certainly does you good to see large numbers of enemy aircraft after a proper strafing by the Royal Air Force. This was at Gambut, not far from Tobruk, and it was the same at Derna. It illustrates the fact that the RAF was well on top. The garrison broke out of Tobruk and joined up with the relieving forces. Tobruk had done its duty magnificently, and now, in place of the gallant Allied defenders, it was quickly filling up with German and Italian prisoners waiting to be sent back to Egypt. Once part of a so-called conquering army on its triumphal way to Suez and Cairo, now just a bunch of beachcombers under close arrest. Derna was the next capture as the 8th Army swept on in hot pursuit of the enemy. Though Rommel was on the run, he was fighting with all the stubborn skill and resource you'd naturally expect from this general. All the same, he was being driven westward, and he had to clear out of Derna at the double. Actually, the town, rather a nice-looking seaside resort, had been evacuated the night before our troops went in. A lot of Italian war material fell into our hands here. I'd rather have a pint of wallop any day. Inside an Italian hospital in Derna, the first troops to arrive found a number of our own wounded. You can imagine the feelings of these British prisoners at such a moment. It was certainly a happy Christmas for them, although wounded. Meanwhile, it was all quiet again in Derna, and the general was planning the best method of overtaking the retreating Germans and Italians. Our force was close on their heels, but when Rommel does run, it's a job to catch up with him sometimes, especially as he'd taken the precaution of doing as much damage as possible to the roads. Prisoners were set to work repairing them. Roadblocks, too, had to be cleared, and once again, prisoners had to be useful as well as ornamental by helping our own troops. The hunt continued, as we know, on to Benghazi and beyond. In fact, the hunt still continues, but the destruction of Hitler's hopes of reaching Suez and the destruction of Hitler's army in Africa are very real. The battlefield is spattered with Hitler's victims, his own men, sacrificed in a vain effort to extend his tyranny beyond the shores of Europe. They're fortunate perhaps to have fallen in battle. The fate of comrades who survived the war will not be so good. Rommel made a stand at Ajudabia, then bolted again. And once again, bad weather made the pursuit difficult. Sandstorms and rain. And when it rains in the desert, it makes a mess of things. This happened right at the beginning of the offensive, and again at the Battle of Ajudabia. Desert floods have their humorous side, if you can preserve a sense of humor at a time like this. It seems that our cameraman did anyway. However, it's not so funny when the army's held up in its pursuit of the Hun, when transport gets bogged and they know that Rommel, on the run again, is getting away. But even if Rommel gets away, there are tens of thousands of the men under his command who can't. General Wavell wiped out an army when he marched this way last year, and most of them were prisoners. General Ritchie hasn't yet got so many prisoners, but very good catches are being taken all the same. when you get over the 30,000 mark, well, it begins to look like another good season. Hitler is not only losing in Russia, he is also losing the Battle of the Mediterranean.